I guess we'll kick things off with a look back at Bledisloe 2, Eden Park. It was a game to be seen to be believed. All Blacks 36-0 win over the Wallabies, and it wasn't close.
It's the 10th time in the history of that fixture that the Wallabies have been nilled. Apparently,
they haven't been nilled 10 times by anybody else.
No, indeed.
It was very impressive from the All Blacks. It was an angry performance. It was very, very physical. They were very...
I noticed you have the words demolition job of spectacular fashion written at the top, and that's pretty much what it was. Yeah, no, you're right. They came out really, really vexed and angry and just upped the physicality, not just in the tight five, but across the park, man for man, all matchups. They were gunning to try and win them. And you were right in saying there was a little bit of dicing with the law as well, because considering what happened with the red card the week before... It was a dangerous approach, but it was something they probably felt they needed to do.
It's something physically they've gotten very good at fronting up since that Lions tour. We've spoken quite critically about the way that they've changed how they approach games, and they're less clinical in terms of being able to execute attacks when they're there. Maybe 5-on-4s or 4-on-3s in the wide channels and exploiting teams and opening up holes. This team looks less to do that and more likely to kick and to try and dominate up front before they go wide.
Compared to obviously the previous iteration of the All Blacks, they're still pretty damn good when they kick.
Well, indeed, but what they have showed to their credit is their ability to front up physically. Is very, very impressive. I mean, they're right there with the best packs and the most physical teams in the world, and well capable of blowing away teams below that level. And that's sort of what you saw here, really, from minute one. When Australia were on the attack, you are right in saying they were very much on the edge of those laws. They were doing sort of your classic cliche All Black stuff. They were going in at the side, they were killing the ball. They were also just being sort of nasty and mean. I don't mean this as a critique. This is exactly how they wanted to play, and it was exactly what was needed to break down a spirited, talented, but ultimately not that strong Wallaby side. And they were throwing late digs in. That Dane Cole's yellow card was one example of it, but it was kind of going on for the whole match. Rough clean-outs, going in at the side, killing the ball, making sure that the Wallabies had no opportunity to get at their ball, and slowing down their ball relentlessly. I mean, in that early part of the game, when it was 3-0 and you didn't know what way it was going to go, and the Wallabies obviously missed a kick, but the Wallabies had a good amount of possession and territory, and the All Blacks weren't giving them an inch. And some of it was at the edge of the law, but for the most part, it was just very, very physical play. And we saw in the Wallabies, those locks. Granted, there was no Rory Arnold. He's pretty crucial to what they do. Yeah. But Adam Coleman and Isaac Rodda, who had both looked so good the week previously, got fronted up against, got beat up, and ended up sort of just being all over the place. And it was as went them, so went the Wallabies. And they
happens very often. They're very illustrative of the Wallabies' chances a lot of the time when you see them going well. And obviously they did have a bit of freedom considering the red card just on the stroke of half time the week previously.
It's Scott Barrett who was there.
So they looked excellent that week, but we saw against the Springboks in week 1, and we saw it again here when a team is that bullish against them and going into contact that much, and then they can't get anything off. What ends up happening is you spot them in the loose, making very, very loose plays. Like at one point, George Bridge just ran over from a kick return, just picked out Adam Coleman and bumped him down, sat him down, and then moved on. And it's like, that's very good physical play from George Bridge, who had an excellent game. But it's also, that's not what you want your locks doing. And when you see that happening, coupled with things like Curtly Beale dropping nearly every high ball in the rain, these are key men for the Wallabies, and it's it was rather a false confidence coming from one really good performance last week in Perth with everything going their way. When things start going against them, they can compound.
They can play well and they can look very good, but they weren't given much opportunity to. They were put under relentless pressure. I mean, that sort of told for the opening try when it was nearly there for them, but the All Blacks were constantly in their faces, playing that real pressure D. There was a lot more focus than there was last week. I mean, as much as we think the All Blacks have dipped, and I think we're right in that, from the last World Cup, they're at a significantly higher level than they showed last week in Perth. And they illustrated that today, and it was getting in the Wallaby faces and forcing the Wallabies, nearly making that play to Reece Hodge, and then he just drops it. And the All Blacks are as good as anybody for having backs who can just take those opportunities.
That was excellent from Richie as well. Great pick up and go. And it was
being able to score that play is invaluable. I mean, there's a lot of teams, I've heard that described online as like a present of a try, and maybe it was an error, but there are a lot of teams who wouldn't score.
Yeah, a lot of teams who'd maybe make a 40-yard gain and set up camp just outside the 22 and hammer away for a little while, and it may yield a 3-pointer in 10 minutes.
Exactly.
You know, like
Richie had his opportunity and scored it, and then there was a lovely example of what they can do when they hit their straps in terms of counter-attacking play with Bowden from fullback, which is exactly what I think we all like about Bowden from fullback, just pulling the strings, sucking in defenders.
He was wrongly getting the criticism, and what they did was correct, and albeit quite ruthless. They axed the wingers and brought in the 2 form wingers in Bridge and Reese, and that really did fix things. It freed them up to look much more devastating off counter-attack, off loose play, which was coming because it was in the rain. The Wallabies were obviously struggling with the physicality, and then you have Curtly Beale at fullback having a shocker, and it's all, the wheels are slowly coming off. And I thought, like, the 2 place kick attempts from Lele Afano, one of them missing left, and then he overcorrects and misses right, and those are their only 2 shots at points. And it's just like, that was illustrative, and that was only in the first quarter of oh dear, this is not going to be smooth sailing at all. And they did show good endeavour, the Wallabies, but nothing clicked and nothing came off. And the All Blacks were, as you say, angry.
It was you could feel it in the stadium. Like there was a nervous energy, like they didn't quite know what it was going to be, but the players were just not going to let it happen. They were as tuned in as they can be, and so much of rugby is just about getting that mental and physical edge. And the All Blacks were there. They were physically very well prepared, and they were mentally quite focused on what they were going to do. And then that's where the ruthlessness came in. Obviously, having wingers who can finish is invaluable. But
even closer to the tight 5, I thought Tui Piloto stepped up. Tui
Piloto was huge. He put his hand up for World Cup selection. He was very, very physical, which is exactly sort of what they've been lacking. And he no match for the Wallaby Locks, or the Wallaby Locks no match for him. And very much winning every contact, and I thought he was one of the heroes of the day. Likewise, I think Artie and Sam Kane, who had a quiet game the week before, showed that can work. Artie can play 6.
Artie as a 6 I would definitely prefer, because putting him in the 7 jersey means that you just don't have a 7 on the pitch really, whereas Kane kind of does a lot of that work anyway, and it would think of himself more like an open side than that. I think there's closer to a balance. Artie is the one who I think is undroppable in their back row currently. He is the playmaker in that back row, and so whatever jersey he's wearing, you need to have him in there, whatever way that affects the back row. But they do need to get that balance right, and it was closer to it this week than the last, pretty much the whole tournament. What we've seen from the back row, the balance was a bit better this week for sure.
And they got some big steals, but they did resource. They kind of showed the blueprint of how to beat Australia. Obviously, the All Blacks are the All Blacks, and when they hit their straps, there's not a lot of teams can replicate it. But in terms of your fundamentals, they very much replicated sort of the Irish way of playing them in Test 2 last year in Melbourne, when Ireland beat Australia. Just aggressively resourcing the offensive breakdown when you have the ball.
Get rid of the poachers. Target the poachers, get rid of them. Double 1 and 2 man clear outs, getting rid of the man.
Eventually pressure will tell the Wallaby defence isn't strong enough to stand up to the biggest and best packs in the world of rugby, and the All Blacks just saw that coming, and they were very clinical and very ruthless, and they went about their business sharply and nicely, and got some lovely tries for it. I thought Severice's try was a gorgeous score.
No, there were a few. It was good to see
Aaron Smith's as well, obviously from that counter-attack.
I thought Aaron Smith had a few absolutely classy touches as well.
It was his best performance of the year.
It was by far. He's pulling out all these lovely techers, lovely box kicks at one point as well, and also Sonny Bill. We highlighted it last week that their centre partnership was a bit kind of frazzled. Sonny Bill had the desired effect of like soaking in defenders but keeping the ball alive and creating that fractured line that the All Blacks are wanted to attack, especially with 2 playmakers like Barrett and Moanga on the pitch, as well as out-and-out finishers and intelligent ones at that in Reese and Bridge on either wing. Suddenly they look pretty devastating potentially.
The backline is taking shape. They need Sonny Bill, frankly. They need Sonny Bill. I think Moanga and Barrett is going to work. I think it's a very good variation. Having 2 playmakers is invaluable. Bodie at fullback is the best fullback around. The 2 wingers have taken their jerseys. They've been given their opportunity and they've taken their jerseys. They're not going to relinquish them, I don't think.
I think so.
And then 13 is the jersey that's up for grabs. I think you need Sonny Bill, and the question is whether Goodhue or Leonard Brown or maybe Crotty, if he comes back, can get that 13 jersey. That's the only one. The backline is fully formed. The TJ Aaron dynamic has its merits. I think they'll mix that up.
They will. It'll depend how much of a defensive role they want their scrummy playing, depending on who the opposition is.
TJ came off the bench in that game and got some massive
2 steals, didn't he? No, he's excellent at that still. Like, they are still 2 of the best options at 9 going, and they are decent. Like, they don't, you don't sacrifice speed with either one really. But they do bring different things, which means they can change things up off the bench no matter who you start. So they're actually really are quite wealthy in that area as far as depth is concerned. But yeah, you're right in saying that the 13 jersey is the only one that really hasn't been completely claimed with any authority, whereas the other two, or the others in the backline definitely have. And the other thing I was going to say on an Australian point of view is that number 6 Lotto, is it Lotto? Sakalaka Lotto. As good as he looks going forward when the pack's actually cruising in cruise control, which he can do, he's not an enforcer that you want in a 6 jersey, and his is the jersey that will become vacant if Pocock comes back in. His is the one that'll be rotated out, and you'll have to rejig how that back row works.
You think is solid at 8?
I think he is. I know they've opted in the past for Pocock at 8 with Hooper at 7, but I actually think
that was when Fardy was there.
That was when Fardy was there. This is it, and presuming that they're not going to opt to call him in at the last minute. Which I think Checker was teasing that there might be one avenue for the likes of Skelton as well, but I don't know. But basically, I think that Lotto doesn't offer quite enough when they're going backwards to stem that tide. He popped up a lot in the middle of the field, didn't really.
No, he was at fault defensively for a few of the scores as well. He's not a good enforcer from 6. No. One thing that they could do is put Rodda in the back row potentially going forward. But generally for the Wallabies, a bit of a harsh lesson. They have showed enough last week, for my view, that they are a danger going into the World Cup. They can catch anybody when their attacking game clicks. It's relentless. But if you can stick to your guns as one of the top teams in the world with big strong packs, if you can have an assured solid set piece, and when you get the ball, resource the offensive breakdown, hold it until the space is there for you to kick, the Wallaby defence, of all of the top defences, it's not going to have enough to repel you. Even with simple rugby. And I think Ireland showed that when they were on tour over there last summer as well, and the All Blacks very much.
South Africa showed it at the start of the Rugby Championship.
Exactly. South Africa have freaks for locks, which helps them. Those locks were just completely bundled aside, the Wallaby boys. But it's a harsh lesson for the Wallabies, but they're not as bad as they showed there either. When they click offensively, they can be better. But they are going to have to get used to going backwards up front, and I think if they're going to win a World Cup, they're going to have to be able to strike and score tries under pressure, and little moves. Granted, it was in the rain in Eden Park, but little moves like the lead up to Richie's try, when they just managed to get the ball outside of the press, and then Reece Hodge didn't hold it, and the pass from Kirtley wasn't great. Those are the things that have to go right for them.
Kirtley has to play well. This is it. Like, Kirtley didn't play well, and it's the first time really all year that we've seen that for the Wallabies, that he hasn't turned up and given literally everything and been all.
He was targeted though. He was put under pressure. He's not a defensive fullback really. No, that's why they were playing him at 12 for years, because defensively he's not a bomb diffuser. He's not in that Israel Folau mould, and certainly the way that the All Blacks got at them with their kicking game isn't something that could happen if Izzy was there. But he's not,
and it's not an area that the All Blacks have targeted them for quite a few years because exactly that. So it's it was an interesting picture, but it is illustrative of if Kirtley's going wrong, the Wallabies aren't going to click, and then if the forward pack are getting dominated and Kirtley's going wrong, they're not going to get anything off, and they literally that's where the nil came from. But the other side, on the All Black front, this was a very, very reassuring performance for them. They exactly at the right time. They're going to gain a lot of confidence from this. And if, I still think, your criticism of them is right. There is a trend that they're slightly less devastating than they were 4 years ago for sure, but they are still contenders. And if they are to win the World Cup, it'll look a little like that. It'll be All Blacks playing.
We still haven't learned in this game about the biggest obstacle to preventing the All Black attack from getting itself going has been a great blitz defence. And there are a load of teams out there employing a blitz defence. I think the All Blacks themselves blitz on defence. South Africa do, Wales do, England do, Ireland do. All of the top teams blitz on defence, and that's something that the All Black attack has struggled to deal with, especially when they can't get a physical foothold against those great physical teams. And that isn't something that was resolved today. But what was resolved was the assured, what it wasn't looking like last week, and what they have assured is that they are amongst the elite, especially up front, they are very much an elite team and very physical and capable of mixing with the best and hammering those beneath that. I thought the scrum was a very interesting dynamic. Obviously they took Owen Franks out of there and put Nepo Laulala in. I feel like Tui Pilotu coming in at tight head lock
added a lot.
And I thought that was very important. They like Scotty Seo was beaten up a bit, and that's not something we've seen really all year. We've seen them struggle a little bit on the tight head side. Ala Latoa has his ups and downs, but we haven't seen Scotty Seo struggle, and he did against Nepo and Patrick as well. I also think Rory Arnold, like the Wallaby scrum has been strong, but Rory Arnold is pretty heavy in that engine room himself.
I think
his
he's
absence,
fairly key. I think Coleman is a softer entity in that.
And him and Rodda together just doesn't balance quite as well as either of them and Arnold. Arnold is pretty important he's an enforcer of a lock, and he's capable more than any of the other Wallaby tight forwards of mixing it with those top teams, of giving as good as he gets. And he was missing definitely. Big hole.
That was
Arnold
a noticeable one for the whole game. They couldn't get a foothold at all physically in any of the exchanges. They were coming off second best, and it meant you could see like even James O'Connor, who looked imperious last week, just couldn't get a thing off. But it never came near him.
I didn't think
it never came.
Fox Sports Australia was doing their player ratings, and they gave O'Connor like 2 out of 10. I thought it was so harsh.
The game just happened elsewhere. Like it's like
I thought his few touches were decent.
That's what I was basically going like he could have been played into the game, but they couldn't get a hold on anything to get like the 13 channel is only going to be resourced if you're getting a little bit off in the tide at all. And they weren't, especially in the rain in Eden Park.
How many times did a brilliant Brian O'Driscoll play as part of a team that just got blown away because nothing else was going right? And yet every time you touched it, you saw his class. And I'm not saying O'Connor was that good, but he certainly wasn't the problem. I don't think the Wallabies need to panic. I don't think they need to change too much. Obviously if they would bring in Skelton and Fardy, that'll be a massive impact, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But if in the meantime they have more or less their blueprint, they need to be able to mix it a little bit more up front. They need that scrum solidified. They need Rory Arnold back probably, but other than that,
probably need Curtly to practice a few bombs between here and there.
Other than that, their blueprint for success is pretty clear. Get outside teams, stick the passes, attack, and they're not going to play in as difficult wet conditions as Eden Park presented them with.
That's
in
true.
Japan.
That's actually a very, very much a factor in judging that performance, is that they definitely won't face conditions like that over in Japan. It'll be a much drier track. And what they discovered last week is fast flowing attacking Aussie rugby is definitely the way forward for them. It's the least attritional way they can go about attacking these bigger teams, and it's definitely the most akin to what they're all about as well, finding the space, spotting the try and being quick about it. So I still think that this is the Wallaby team that Cheika has assembled to go to the World Cup, and is the kind of the best of what he has going for him. But with the All Blacks, I think this performance came at the exact right time. They've sorted out a fair few of their problems in response to pretty heavy criticism in the media. Things like the ruthlessness of cutting the two wingers, the discovery of Tupelo in the second row as a genuine alternative to Brodie when Brodie's out, because prior to him doing that, we haven't seen.
He's more of a tight head lock though. I actually think he's going to be breathing down Sam Whitelock's throat for his jersey, just because I think when Brodie they kind of need. And in behind him, they do need a line out option. Especially if they're having 2 sevens, really. Like in Hardy.
Well, what won't do is the fact that them with Brodie versus them without Brodie at the moment, prior to that performance, has been such a drop off.
And Tupelo did fill that hole. You're right, physically.
So that was very encouraging too. I think this was a great performance from the All Blacks in the rain, and they even answered your call for an elite haka. They brought it out. They broke it out.
That was an example. It's like I swear to God, the quality of the All Black performance, their decision to do what haka, it factors in.
It does seem to factor
Kamite is like a tell when they're doing Kamite that they're not quite as focused as they should be. Like they should be alarmed if a World Cup knockout game they're doing Kamite. Like if I was an All Black fan, I'd be going, oh, why are you doing that one? You really should be doing your big game fucking haka, Kappa Pango. And they brought it out, and you're right, ruthless from start to finish. And the crowd, when the crowd in New Zealand, like the media who lay into them, they're still a little bit like, there was a decent atmosphere at the game, but they're still quite soft. Like, they let the team do the leading, and in that first half when it was 3-0, it was murmury and tense, and then when the All Blacks started to go on top, that's when they started to get loud and ruthless and feel happy.
There's less of a call to action coming from there.
It's so results based. It's like a little bit like the French as well. Very much depend on the result, and if things go wrong, they'll turn a little bit.
The French still have like the marching band and stuff.
No, they have more voice and atmosphere for sure,
like,
but just in terms of their attitude a little bit. The team takes the lead, but the team's attitude was great.
Couldn't fault it this week at all. I think they
if they could bottle that, it could take them to a World Cup final. But
the only caveat I'd attach is that it came after a defeat, and we've seen this team do that before. They did it when they lost to Ireland in Chicago, came back 2 weeks later, had done their homework and righted all the wrongs that had happened, and put the performance right. That's a very good kind of illustration of learnings within a team, and all this is a very good thing in general. It won't serve you in a World Cup.
No,
if you blow it once, you don't have a do-over 2 weeks later or a week later. So
unless obviously the opening day in the pool, but and then the other thing that I would note as well is just before we wrap it up is that when they make those mistakes and they have those bad performances, the place they go to is that physical place the next week, and we've seen that a few times. They go back to their fundamentals, their tight five, and that's what they did to Ireland in 2016. They kind of caught them cold by taking them on up front and beating them. But it has its weaknesses, and there's a lot of teams with great tight fives and great tight play. Australia just don't happen to be one of them. So they'll have to. It remains to be seen what elements they can fix. But certainly the back row much improved. Sonny Bill in the centres is a solution. They found 2 great wingers who aren't going to relinquish their jerseys. There's only so much you can do in 6 days. That's a lot of improvement from where they were.
And it was their best performance of the calendar year so far.
They'll be very happy. They'll be very happy.
Definitely. And Bledisloe champs again.
Steve Hansen, in all of his time as backroom coach under Graham Henry and as head coach dating back to I think about 2005, has not relinquished the Bledisloe Cup. And he was saying he was very happy with that.
I'd
not
say
on my watch.
That's not reassuring for a Wallaby, but that's very encouraging for a Kiwi. It's impeccable.
They care a lot about it.
They do. And you could see that. You could feel that in the crowd. In both crowds. Actually, Perth was great as well. The atmosphere in both games was wonderful. So congrats to the All Blacks, Bledisloe champs again. Commiserations, Wallabies, but
they'll be back.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching that video. If you're new here, please like and subscribe down below, and leave a comment as well, because we enjoy the chat and conversation. Thank you.